This is the SuperSport Schools podcast, bringing you stories of our future stars, powered by Spur Steak Ranchers.
1, 2, 3, go!
Hello and welcome to another episode of the SuperSport Schools podcast brought to you by Spur. I'm Alex White. We're back at Rondebosch, my old school, and sitting next to me is a man who's on a mission to become the biggest sports content creator in South Africa, fellow Rondebosch old boy Robbie Gillett.
Yes,
Robbie,
sir.
welcome to it.
Thank you very much for having me. Our old school.
Yes.
I'm just on that. My family actually has a massive history here. I'm a third generation at the school. And even my granny worked at the school for a bit. So there's lots of history around the school. So it's really cool to be back. I feel at home and good to be sitting, of course, next to a Rondebosch boy.
Oh, that's very cool. We're going to talk about school sport today. So good that you have a deep connection to Rondebosch.
Yeah.
But just to start off, obviously content creator. Some people might have seen you online before. Know you're a bit involved with the Stormers as well. So let's get into that. Sport, your journey, where did it all start? And the reason I want to know about it is because, like, I know I'm involved in sports and media. Never thought that's what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
So what's the story like for you?
It's funny. It's pretty much similar. You know, I don't think we don't find ourselves or think we're going to end up like this or in this space. I fell into it. You know, because I wanted to do sports psychology. So I went to UCT in 2020 and very, a lot of energy and do sports psychology, got into our first lecture and they take you through your roadmap of, how to get to where you want to be. And they mentioned their honours courses and they didn't mention sports psychology. So I thought that's weird. They've missed one. Went down to the lecturer and asked, didn't mention sports psychology, what's happening there? And they were like, oh, we don't offer that here. So you can imagine on my first day at UCT, I've got, okay, Mom, we got a bit of a problem here. And they mentioned Stellenbosch, but it was too late. I couldn't go. We had already started varsity. And then I got in contact with a guy, another Rondebosch boy, Tom Dawson-Squib, who at the time was a Stormers performance coach and UCT head coach. And I messaged him. I was like, how do I get into this? And I want to do what you do. I want your job. And he said, we sort of threw out a few ideas. He said, just create an energy around your name in sport. So I thought, okay, that's interesting. I decided I'm going to write a little bit because I just started, when you first at varsity, you need to write all those essays. So I wrote a couple. I thought I was quite good, And then I did a couple and I was like, And then I just decided, okay, Tom, I'm going to interview you. I like speaking and I'll interview you. Interviewed him, and then within the first 5 minutes, he called what I was doing a podcast, and then it just went from there. And then it was sort of 2020 to 2023. I was studying sports science at Stellenbosch, so I was sporadic with it. And then this year in April, I took the plunge to do it full time, and I stopped doing my honours course, which was big, and I went straight into it. And I've loved it ever since. It's been a real journey, and we had lots of fun.
Wow. I love that you bring up Tom, because obviously he's been an integral part of UCT for a long time as head coach. He had some great performances, took Ikes to the last two finals. And he's very much about the mental aspect of sports and the performance. I know he's also done work with the Proteas, so it's cool that you could sort of get that advice from him early on. Taking that step to say no to honours, to stop honours midway. And I think I know actually a quick story for Western Province Rugby. We have to do for referees. We have to do the fitness tests every year at the start of the year and then throughout the year if you want to try and improve to get onto the different levels that we have. I remember the one year it was pouring with rain. We were doing it out in Stellenbosch and we had to do it indoors. And you were one of the sort of students they had involved with keeping the scores. So I know that you were involved in that at Stellies. Big step to say, honours, it's been great, but I'm going to go full time. What pushed you over the edge?
Sure, I had a couple of really good conversations at the end of 2023 as to work in 2024 with what I was doing because obviously World Cup and work picked up towards the end of it. So I had quite a few good conversations and I just found myself, I was 6 weeks in and I just found and I loved sports science and I really did and I was really lucky to get in, to be very honest with you. And I just felt like, I really wanted to take the plunge and give it a go and felt like I was missing a couple of opportunities that were out there for me because I couldn't. I had commitments to you have your certain stakeholders and that and your of course your studies. So I had commitments there and I felt a bit like, I really wanted to give it a real crack and I'm 24 this year. So, you want to get into a career. I felt like my time at Stellenbosch was done. So it was a big decision, but I haven't looked back since. I think it's been a decent one from what I think.
So for somebody who's seen you online or maybe hasn't seen you before, what is it that you do? What is it that you're involved with now? You've said goodbye to honours. You've taken this full time.
Yeah, sure. A lot of my stuff's actually rugby at the moment, but my journey is to become one of the number one sports content creator in South Africa. So that's my thing. I want to be involved with as much sport as possible. I like the entertainment side of sports, and I like playing sports. So I want to do I want to do challenges. I want to add value as much as I can in sport and entertain. I think I want to do footy. There's so much around, and like we're going to speak about school sport now, but it's just massive. South African sport is just, we're in like a complete bubble of it. It's like so big, and I want to be number one in that and then take on the world as a dream, That's what I want to do.
Yeah. And you talk about entertaining, and I know something that you've done is being involved with the Stormers and their student stand at DHL Stadium. And that's something that you basically pushed and created.
Yeah.
So take us through that journey, because also coming in as somebody quite young, getting these people to listen to you. I mean, how do you go up to Dobbo and say, this is what we're gonna do? You're now very friendly with Dobbo, but at the start, you have to get your foot in the door somehow to make this happen.
Yeah. It was probably the first thing that I did that actually had like sort of an impact in sport, like a really big thing. It was, I think, 2021, just after COVID, and the crowds were allowed back. And I was on Twitter, or X now, and I saw like guys complaining like the whole stadiums are empty or whatever. I thought, well, let's not complain, let's get Oaks down. So I literally started a WhatsApp group. We did the first one for the Bulls, and it was one of the funnest days of my life. It was so good. I think there was a group maybe of 30 of us, just my friends and like people. And then we didn't do one the next week, and then the week after the Storm was called, and they were like, "Hey, we want to back you with this." And it's been 2 and a bit years now, and we've done it. And I think it's been one of the first stands to sell out. In most games when the stadium is full, so it's been really cool. And it's been and what I like about it is that like everyone comes. So it's like my idea that I got from was the sevens. People come to the sevens because it's fun. So you don't necessarily need to love rugby. But come down, and you never know, maybe a handful of people who don't watch rugby decide, geez, this is really cool. Yeah. So that was my sort of thinking around it, and it's been really cool. And I've met some great people, and you're able to connect. And what I like is it's a young stand, so it's all young professionals, and also it's like it's like LinkedIn, but a fun LinkedIn. I also like connecting, and so that's what I've liked about it. And you see people connect, and the next day you see them watching rugby together as well. And I think that's what rugby does for us South Africans, and to see it live and is really cool. So that was my sort of heart around creating it.
That's so interesting. I think what you've sort of done is actually, if you think about school rugby, everybody goes to that and has a good time, not necessarily because they care about rugby. I mean, the whole school comes out to watch because they want to win as the school, but also because they love it. It's a fun time. And then when you sort of leave school, as we know, some school matches get more attendance than some Currie Cup games, URC games, but that's been changing. And I think it's because there's been this focus, and you're pushing it with the Stormers to create a stand that young people can have a good time at, and it sort of bridges that gap
for sure
between the two. What do you think, as somebody who's come from obviously a school that loves rugby, loves cricket, hockey, water polo, football, all these sports, what is it, do you think, about rugby that's different?
Sure. I think, look, the reality is that rugby's winning at the moment. So, that's the thing, So what I did, actually, I started it, yes, but actually, if the Stormers didn't win, it wouldn't have got any traction. Like, the Stormers in that season won the URC, and the next season made the final. So, like, that helps. Rugby's winning at the moment. I think people just have fun at rugby. It's fast. So, for instance, cricket's a little bit different, it's a little bit longer. It's tough.
Although I think with the SA20, that's also creating
SA20 has been magic. I've thought like that. That is also one of the better times I've had at a sports game, is at Newlands with my Cape Town and all that. But for me, I think rugby is just really quick, and it's like fast. There's impact, and there's also storylines. Like at the Stormers at the moment, there's Marnie, there's Damien, there's Sasha, there's all these like superstars that are coming out, and people want to come watch and follow the storyline. So a lot of what I've done is actually just been off the back of what the Stormers are doing and what Dobbo's doing. You know, we speak about Dobbo, like before that he was spoken about and like people wanted him sort of sacked. Like, the reality was, and then he won the URC. There's another storyline. Like people buy into. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, you know, because there's a storyline behind it. I think that's what people buy into, and people are now following the rugby storyline because of Chasing the Sun and all these brilliant documentaries, SuperSport Schools. You can follow a guy like Lorenzo Julius from Matric. When I watched him, bro, the first time I watched him, I was like, this guy is huge. Yes. And you can follow his now journey because of SuperSport Schools and what that's done for guys. And I think people are now following storylines, and that's what I mean. I buy into a storyline. You know, the rugby's great if you love rugby, but if you don't necessarily love rugby, you're going to buy into a storyline, and that's I think what people have done with rugby in this country.
Yeah, and you're getting those storylines from earlier on, like you're saying, with school sports. So we're going to talk about your involvement now with SuperSport Schools. We don't just have you to talk about what you've done, but also what you're going to do. But before we get into that, we obviously, like, you know, have the quiz on the show, but we always do a game before the quiz, halfway through, to warm you up. For the quiz, 2 truths and a lie.
Cool. Yeah, so my 2 truths and a lie are about my sporting prowess. Okay. Or lack thereof, we'll see. So I've never, throughout my cricketing journey, I've never scored a century.
Okay.
And I was a batter. Okay. For about a period of 2 years in my childhood, I supported the Sharks because my cousin played for them. One of my nicknames is Ace, because I've got one of the fastest serves at my local tennis club. Tough.
Okay, so one of these isn't true.
One of these
so
isn't true.
Either it is that you've never scored a century, that you supported the Sharks, or that you're called Ace. Okay, so you were a cricketer, and what's annoying is that I literally was looking through your bio before this, and so I know you're a cricketer, and I can't remember what team you played for at Rondebosch. And if you were a batter, when I was a batter, my highest ever score was 42. So
proper.
Yeah, so close to that half century, but still good. And that was like under 13B or something. Okay. And you were playing tennis yesterday when we were planning to do this. So I don't know. Fastest ace, maybe. Supported the Sharks. That's also possible. Unforgivable, but possible.
I know.
Okay, I'm going to say then that that Ace being your nickname is not true.
Got it right. Ooh. No, you got it right.
Ooh.
You got it right.
So you've never scored.
I've never scored a century.
And you did support the Sharks.
I did, but only because my cousin played for them, and my grade 2 teacher supported the Sharks. So I was like, I mean, you gotta like
go
make people happy. You know,
yeah.
Exactly. But not anymore. I'm a diehard Stormer. Stormers are probably not going to be happy that I've said that. The Sharks, if you need a party, if you need a student stand.
Yeah. If the Sharks need a student stand, they're at Kings Park because their attendance is not as great as ours. Yeah. Now, do they know who took it?
No, well done. I honestly thought I had you there. Genuinely, I thought I had you there, but obviously not. I wasn't as good as I thought I was.
Maybe there's something about it that just I don't believe.
Your Ace is like, you know,
it has to be a serious.
And also, I'm not tall as well, so I thought that maybe would have been your thinking.
Not going to be giving us like Kevin Anderson, Marion Cilic vibes.
No, not at all. No. Not at all.
Bringing you the sport you care about the most. This is the SuperSport Schools podcast.
Come on, wake up now. Who got zombie? Wake up now. Sequilaton Scott. Wake up now. Who got my senior? Get up and go.
With 15 delicious breakfasts, Spur is the place to be until 11 every morning. Enjoy an unreal breakfast for just $56.90. Spur, people with a taste for life.
Wake up now. Come on. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Bringing you the sport you care about the most. This is the SuperSport Schools podcast.
We are now going to talk about SuperSport Schools. Okay, so obviously For people watching, listening at home, they don't know about this yet, but there's some exciting stuff in the works for the URC, and we've been talking about the URC. You're going to be part of a show that basically just watches along URC games, and they're going to be broadcast on SuperSport Schools. So you're going to be joining the SuperSport Schools family. You're going to become a far more familiar face to everybody. Excited about that?
And I'm very, and it's the first time I've heard that come out of someone else's mouth. You know, like I've kept it pretty honest. I've told my family and all that, but to hear it come out of someone else's mouth, really cool. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It's really, really cool to hear that, and I'm so excited. Like the URC is something I watch every weekend, and I'm heavily involved in. And to be involved with SuperSport Schools is so cool. And what I thought about it over the weekend, and just like sort of thinking about it, and what I want to do is just add as much value to the subscriber and the viewer as possible in my journey at SuperSport Schools. And I can't wait to get started. Like so excited, like buzzing. I can't wait to just get cracking and hopefully produce a bit of magic.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be such a cool show because they're going to be youngsters with you. I'm saying youngsters like we're not, but people still in school who are rugby players to talk about the game as it's unfolding. You're going to be watching it live, having fun. And I think it's great to expose the URC to the next generation of viewers and players who are going to be taking part in it. Because I think people growing up now aren't really going to remember Super Rugby. Because it's sort of last proper season was 2019. Then we had COVID, and then we were done. And now we've had the URC in its 4th year this year that we've been a part of it. So for all these kids who are going to be watching, they're going to grow up with the URC, and it's just going to be you guys bringing it to them in an exciting new way. That's
a really good point. A lot of these guys won't remember won't even know Super Rugby. And I think the really cool thing about the SuperSport Schools and the watch along is, I'm able to connect with the guys coming through, the next generation, like really, like if I'm sitting down with 2 players, in 2 years' time, the reality is they could be playing.
Yes,
and for guys to get that exposure to these guys, and not necessarily just the guys watching along, but the viewers, to see these guys, and like we say, people buy into stories and go, watch along. He was there. No way is that him, It's just buzzing.
Exactly.
And I'm really excited to just get to know the players as well. And really sort of dive deep into the SuperSport Schools aspect of everything, which is really cool.
Those storylines now will be able to also start a lot earlier, because what used to happen is you'd see somebody break onto the scene. Maybe you'd first see them playing for your provincial side, your Super Rugby side, and then eventually they make the Springboks. But they obviously have a story that's existed from before then, but the only people who would have known about that are super school sport nerds or writers or people who care very deeply. Now, because of SuperSport Schools, we are following storylines from before they are on any provincial team, when they're still in school. And I mean, we're coming close to the end of the year where we do our class of 2024. And in our rugby segment for that, we name about 50 players. And in the top 30 athletes of the year, which includes all sports, last year for class of 23, we had, I think, 3 or 4 rugby players. This year it will probably be a similar number. And so they're being identified while they're still in school. So it's going to come to a point when you guys are sitting there in the watch along and you're talking about players who we've already been following for 3 years, or who were once sitting next to you as part of that, which is so cool.
It's wild, and it's such an exciting opportunity because these guys, for me, like I believe, and I keep going on about it, but the story and a person's story is not only important to them, but it's important for us to know. Like you look at the Sia Khaleesi story, it's the most beautiful story. And people have bought into the Springboks because of the story. Like think about 2018 Springboks and the journey to 2019 to 2023 to the Lions series, and so I just really think that story element and being able to follow a guy from the first watch along in 2024 till 2026 where he makes his URC debut, I think it's just going to be special. I'll probably get emotional watching that. Yes. There's a watch along. I'm like, we did this,
It's incredible. And I think back to 2018 when we beat New Zealand in Wellington.
Yes.
And that was like the turning point.
Oh.
And then to win the World Cup in 2019. I mean, I've watched rugby my whole life, but I've probably only been as passionate as I am now from when I started reffing, which was in about grade 9, which was 2018.
Sure.
So I've only sort of known us as world champions.
That's wild.
when I've deeply cared.
Yeah.
So I just long may it last. And those storylines from 2019, when Chasing the Sun came out, I think, I didn't realize it then, but I think that's what made me so interested in sports and media.
Yeah.
And so that's influenced me. And I mean, the stories we have in school sport are also so incredible. This year, Jeppy beating Grey College.
Yeah.
Like that could have had a whole Chasing the Sun made about it
exactly.
itself. There's some amazing stuff in school sports, and I know we're going to get you involved in a bit more than just the watch along. I know there's also been some mention of cricket, which you also which you're also really keen on, and the Schools SA20 has started this year with teams from all across the country taking part that the SA20 is backing, and that's brought so much excitement to cricket. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening.
For sure. We speak about the cricket, and you know, the women's side now is in the semi-final.
We're literally recording
Yeah.
today as they play in about 4 hours time.
And how good's that?
Yeah.
How good's that? And even like the men, they made the final. I think it was this year. It was this year.
Yeah, men made the final this year.
So-
Women made the final last year here in Newlands, which was just probably the most exciting cricket match I've ever watched. Was the
So
semi-final against England when we won, and then in the final, even though we lost, and it wasn't super close. I mean, it was the closest final there's ever been in the T20 World Cup for the women's game. But the crowd, every single ball was clapping in. Every single dot ball was just, people would go berserk. It was incredible.
Yeah.
So cricket's getting a vibe, and the SA20 is helping
it's
so
getting
much.
a vibe, and I hope, and I really want to see it be at the level it once was, because honestly, we've got one of the most beautiful cricket stadiums just down the road, and our cricketers are just world class, and I want to see it and hopefully be a part of bringing that vibe back. You know, I think that's actually been on my heart recently as well.
Yes.
To be able to go let's bring a bit of energy into cricket again in South Africa. Let's get supporting. So I'm going to try to do as much cricket content as I can as well, and be involved with the SuperSport Schools and cricket. Just we want that energy back. Come
Awesome.
on.
Yes.
Eh?
100%. Lastly, just before we get to the quiz, obviously you are on this journey to become the biggest content creator for sports in South Africa. What do you think for content creators in South Africa like yourself, what are sort of the biggest challenges that you face, and how have you overcome them so far?
Sure. I think consistency is probably the biggest one, because you need to stay fresh and you need to stay on top of it. So if you can find a way to be consistent, I mean, the algorithm, we don't get into algorithms and all that, but the algorithm requires you to be consistent to grow. So that for me has been, I'd find a challenge, because I don't like to put out stuff just to post every day. So I wanted, you need to stay fresh. I think maybe that creative process of trying to stay as fresh as possible. To overcome that, you know, with the reality is South African sports is just massive, and it's been hot for the whole year. So it actually hasn't been too much of a struggle. But you know, when there's just down periods are that's what I suppose when the struggle is. And it sounds bad and it sounds like a little bit shallow, but when a video doesn't do as well as you think it should, you put your heart and soul into something, and then an algorithm decides if it does well or not.
Yeah.
So for me, but how I've overcome that is you actually can't put your identity in it. Be a good brother, be a good son, be a good friend. That's what you must have your identity in. And it sounds deep, and I don't want to get too deep here, but so I think that's it. Don't take it too personally. You're going to get negative comments, and people are. But I guess that's also because people are just so passionate.
Yeah.
So the negative comments come with it. But don't take it too seriously. It's not that deep.
Yeah.
I'd say. Just enjoy it.
I like what you say about that it's not too deep, because obviously something people will always say is you need to sort of find a niche, something that sets you apart. You've done that with the way you make videos and the challenges and everything that not really anyone else does in South Africa like you do. So you find your niche, but then, like you say, those videos, you put lots of effort into this one video, it doesn't do as well. This one is sort of less effort, and then it does super well, and you're like...
just reposted something.
Exactly. I know that from some of my videos where something's happened in a rugby match somewhere, and then I just repost it, add a voiceover maybe, and say, oh, this is fine because of this law, and then it does this well.
Yeah.
And then I painstakingly create a video, put in all the effects to explain some new law, and it's like, meh.
Yeah, and then you just watch the numbers not go up. You're just like, what? Refresh.
Yeah. So, like you say, if you enjoy it and you are consistent, but you don't read too deeply into the video by video numbers. Obviously, you want to see that you're growing in there and that's going in the right direction, but not on a video by video basis.
And also just another thing, you need like, what I found the struggle is you need like people to back you, and which has been so cool that SuperSport Schools have, you know, identified me and sort of got me involved. And like I'm really grateful to the SuperSport Schools family for that, because you know you need to be backed. You know, it's cool to be backed. And it's like you see your hard work. And so it's been, I suppose it's April. It's been about 6 or so months that I've been doing this seriously full time. And so it's been cool to be backed by such a great thing.
Absolutely. So SuperSport Schools obviously found you because of the niche that you've built for yourself and the content you've been creating. So it can also be such a good way to get yourself out there.
Yeah.
And you're now going to put yourself out there, all the way out there, by taking part in the quiz. We
My heart rate's through the roof. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've seen some pretty impressive people on this pod as well. So I'm like, you know, I don't think it's 0, you know.
Yeah. Are you ready to play the SuperSport Schools podcast quiz?
I don't think you're ever ready, but I'm ready to take the challenge.
Ready to take it on. Okay, 60 seconds on the clock. As many questions as you can get correct. If you don't know the answer, just say pass. We'll go to the next one. Your time starts now. Which South African cricketer was recently inducted into the ICC Hall of Fame? Correct. How many teams participate in the SA20?
8.
It's 6. Which country will host the 2025 Women's Rugby World Cup?
England.
Correct. Before this year, when was the last time Rondebosch won the Grand Slam?
In 2001.
1997. What is called if a bowler oversteps during a delivery in cricket?
No ball.
Correct. Who kicked the winning penalty for the Sharks in the Currie Cup final?
Hendrick, sir.
Correct. Which small town annually hosts the Standard Bank boat race?
Pass.
Port Alfred. Which team won the unofficial Craven Week final this year?
Western Province.
Correct. In water polo, typically teams may not have possession of the ball for longer than how many seconds without shooting for the goal? Correct. Which school's 4x100 meter relay team has unofficially broken the under-18 world record?
Great Bloom.
It's Cura Hazeldine. What team is the only one the Stormers have never beaten in the
Munster.
URC? Correct. What is the colloquial name of the SA women's national football team?
Banyana.
Correct. And time is up.
How many was that?
It's 8.
8.
It's 8.
Oh, that's not bad.
We have a 3-way tie
Oh
at the top.
no! How many more
needed
questions
one
were
more.
there?
Well, there were more questions.
Oh, okay. I'll take.
8.
Look,
I'll take that.
I'd love to have got a 9.
Just if you'd got that Rondebosch one or the SA20 one.
And I was, oh no. Look, not bad. I thought I was going to get 0.
Yeah, it's a lot better than 0.
Yeah.
And it also shows that we're getting the right person in to come in and talk about sport and school sport and join the SuperSport Schools family. But yeah, Robbie, thanks so much for chatting today, and all the best with the journey. And we're going to be seeing a lot more of you here on SuperSport Schools.
No, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to get cracking. And I love your work. So very, very cool to have sat here with you.
Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of the SuperSport Schools podcast, brought to you by Spur. Every Sunday at 6 p.m, we have new episodes to talk about school sport and go beyond just the scores on match day. But for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.
This has been the SuperSport Schools podcast, bringing you stories of our future stars, powered by Spur State Ranchers.